Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here and welcome back to another video. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to actually fix a faulty outreach system, most specifically towards Loom, because I think that's one of the most popular ways of doing outreach at the moment. For those of you who don't know what Loom is, it's a video recording software, and one of the sort of key underlying strategies for a lot of agencies is to send personalized videos to clients. Now, I'm going to help you define your problem, solve it, etc. in this video. What I'm not going to do is give you a fancy piece of copy or a subject line or a script or something. If you're looking for those things, that is where your problem is to begin with, because you've got this shiny object syndrome where you think that all of your business problems will be solved and a whole system can be fixed with one bit of copy or something like that. It's not the case. It will move the needle and you need the right copy, you need the right script, but I'm going to give you something today that is far more powerful, and that's how I look at this. Okay, it's the actual framework I use and the paradigm, the lens that I see the whole system through. And if you can just make a slight shift in your paradigm in terms of how you look at these outreach systems and how you go about solving problems with them, you're going to be miles ahead of everybody else. So this video, it might be quite long. I haven't really got too much of a plan. But what I'm going to do is just sort of intro it here. I'm going to hop into the laptop and sort of walk you through how I see things and how it works, and then hopefully it adds some value to you. So the first thing to know, right, is that if you're sending Loom videos and you're not booking calls, then you have a problem with your system, okay? Kind of goes without saying. But the main thing to know here is that people don't really know what a system is. Right? We think that we know what systems are until we actually try to explain them, and then we end up just thinking, oh, I just send videos and try to get responses. But that's not what a system is. That's not what a system entails, and it definitely isn't the right way to look at it. If that's how you see it, that's okay, because no one's told you to look at it in a different way. And traditional school systems, like pun not intended, traditional school systems do not teach us this mode of thinking and this methodology. So I'm going to help you out here. So the way to think about it, right, is that if you've got a Loom process where you send Loom videos to clients, if you've got an outreach process where you send voice notes to clients, messages to prospects, whatever it might be, then you have an outreach system in place. It might not be working, right? But it's still a system. It's where you've got inputs and outputs. And the input is going to be your time and effort and attention, and the output should be meetings. Now, if you're putting in time, effort, and attention, and the output is not meetings, then the system is fundamentally broken. And so the purpose of this video is to help you define why it's broken. And I'm not going to focus too much on the solution of that problem that you might have, because there's so many different problems that you could be facing. But what I've found, and I don't know which famous scientist said this, whether it's like Einstein or Newton or something, but 99% of problem solving is problem definition. Okay, because what I see all the time is people have their Loom process and it doesn't work, they don't get meetings, and then they start neurotically changing the script, or they change the delivery of the Loom, they change the audit process, they change their copy, they start changing their subject line, they think it's the email footer, they think it's email deliverability, they need a new tracking software, a new CRM. You don't know what to change because you don't know what the problem is. And if you knew what the problem was, then you'd know what sort of actions you need to take to address it. But what I see people do is they'll send Looms and they'll send like 20 Looms and then they don't get any responses, and then they start making all these changes and they don't know why they're not getting responses. So all of the changes they make have no real impact and probably take them in the direction opposite of what they want to go. So the way to think about this is to think that, well, going back, before I explain that, going back to that problem definition thing, I think it was like I said, Einstein or Newton or someone, they were asked, like, you know, if you've got 60 minutes to solve a problem, how would you distribute that time? And I don't know if it was 60 minutes, but the point stands. And the scientist was like, well, I would spend 59 minutes defining the problem, and the last minute would be solving it. And I think that drew the point home for me pretty hard, that most of problem solving is problem definition. And human beings by default aren't very good at defining problems. So let's dive in. So with your Loom system, right, you can imagine it in like a sort of straight line where you go from Loom all the way through to appointment booked. And along the way here, we've got different activities and different things that clients or prospects must do to book this call. The problem is that people don't really keep a track of this sort of straight line pipe from Loom sent to email opened to Loom viewed to positive reply to appointment booked. You know, we've got these sort of staggered stages between someone opening our email and someone booking a call. And the reason the system is broken is never because the system is just broken. It's usually because one of the compartments of the system is broken. So the way to think about this is, as a whole, as the system as a whole, it's macro, right? It's a system, it's big. We can't really define it as anything other than that, but the best and easiest way to think about it is that the system as a whole, the macro system, is made up of microsystems, all of which must have value flowing through them and must work for the system as a whole to work. So I'm gonna jump over into my laptop here on Loom and sort of explain how this works with a visual format. It's very difficult to use hand gestures to explain this stuff. So I'm gonna hop over on there and I'll explain that and continue the video. Cheers. Okay, so let's take a look at this one, right? Because seriously, if you can think like this, then you are going to be solving a lot of problems. So I'm supposed to be sort of to and froing different screens here, but if I'm not paying attention to the camera, it's because I'm just focused on this thing, right? So here's how to look at this, right? I'm going to sort of pull up this whiteboard and just explain in a visual format how this works to begin with, because it's very difficult to think in systems without visualization, at least it is for me. And so let me sort of explain, right? So if you think about this, right, if I can, is it going to let me click on this? Yes, it is. So if you think about this, your Loom process is a straight line. Now, it's definitely not a straight line because I haven't got the steadiest hand in the world. But, you know, we've got these different stages at which, you know, must happen in order for us to arrive at the end goal we want. So at the beginning here, we've got, well, even before that, you know, we've got email sent, right? Okay, so the beginning, for this process to fire, for this system to begin, the input is email sent. Okay, and all the way over here, the output should be appointment booked. Okay, and so if you're not getting booked appointments from your emails that you've sent, we know there's a problem with the system. The problem comes when you can't define what the problem actually is with the system as a whole. Because you start to think chaotically that the whole thing is just broken and that you need to just find one magic fix for the whole system. And that isn't really how this stuff works, because there's just too many variables that you could fuck up, basically. So instead, the way to sort of think about this is to think in these stages that I've just defined here. Okay, so the first one here would be, are people opening my email? Okay. And then the second stage here is going to be, are people viewing my Looms? Right? And then the third stage here is, are people replying? Both positively and negatively. Because we like negative replies because they indicate good email deliverability. So the thing is, right, is you've got to think about, instead of thinking of this as one big whole system, you've got to think of it as you've got these subsystems. Okay, and for as long as these subsystems are working and healthy, then the system as a whole will flow completely and be fine, if that makes sense. So people try to solve the big problem of appointment booking with one like Loom video and a couple of emails, but instead, before you can solve the problem of appointment booking, you've got to solve the problem of people opening your emails in the first place, right? And if you can't figure that one out, then people aren't going to view your Looms. And if people don't view your Looms, they're not going to reply. And if people don't reply, they're not going to book appointments. So instead of seeing this as this big ball of chaos, right, where you've got different like processes and it's crazy and you've got so much going on and you don't know what the problem is and you can't fix it because it's all stupid, just look at it as these subsystems, right? So you've got the macro up here, right, which is the sort of straight line, and then you've got these microsystems. And so what we want to do here is we want to realize that, you know, all we've got to do is, instead of fixing one huge big problem, we just have to fix 3 small problems, and by doing so, we fix big problem, if that makes sense. So obviously this is quite a simple way to look at it, and that is honestly the case. It's really straightforward. But now we have the question of, right, well, how do we actually define this, right? Because how do we know that people are opening emails? How do we know people are viewing Looms? How do we know people are replying? So now what I'm going to do is remove all this stuff here, and we're going to I'm just going to refresh this. It's probably a lot easier than that. And I'm going to walk you through how to actually do this. And so this is a workflow that we give our clients, and of course it's not going to remove itself. Is there a rubber or something? This is like a new whiteboard software, so it's going to be a bit of a pain to Let's see if I can find this. So this is the sort of production quality that you get when you come to my channel. They have to have some way for you to delete this. Oh, you know, fuck it, let's just go over here. Okay, right, anyways. So as I was saying, how do we actually figure out what these problems are and how we define them? Well, we're going to be doing that with my favorite thing in the world. And that's metrics, okay? Metrics are basically numbers that determine and tell you exactly how well systems are performing. If you don't have your metrics, you don't have any gauge on how well your system is doing at all, because they will tell you everything you need to know and more about what's going on and what the situation is. So what we've got to realize here, right, is going back to that sort of straight line. So, you know, we start over here where we send the email, right? And then we send these emails and then, you know, they get opened. Okay. And then we get our Looms viewed. Okay. And then after that, people will reply. Okay. And then people will book. Now, what you've got to realize is that, you know, whilst this is one big system, we now know that we've got microsystems that make up big system. And if instead of trying to fix big system with chaotic changes that probably don't have any cause-effect relationship to the actual problem, all we have to do is look at the micro problems. So now we need to sort of figure this out, right? So let's think here. Let's say right now you're sending 100 emails a day, right? 100 emails a day. For some reason this isn't very thick pen. I wonder if I can see. Yeah, there we go. Sending 100 emails a day, and let's say you're getting like a 0.3% booking rate, which is atrocious, right? So there's a problem. Okay. Now, the thing is you know you've got a problem because you've got a 0.3% booking rate, but you don't know at which stage the problem exists because we're going to find there's a bottleneck here. So you've probably heard before about defining bottlenecks, and if you haven't, basically you've got sort of a system, and through that system value will flow, and you'll probably find that, like, you know, if it's flowing through a bottle, at the end of that bottle, if there's like a sort of narrow point, then water can't flow through as quickly, or value can't flow through as quickly, hence why we find a drop off in numbers. So what we need to do here is we've got a 0.3% booking rate. This is cause and effect. This happens because we have a problem and we have to define it. So what you want to do here really is you want to have a constant log of all of your metrics for all of these numbers. So it's just like running Facebook ads. You need to know your click-through rate. You need to know your conversion rate on your landing page. You need to know your VSL's conversion rate. All of these things that we do in ads, people don't seem to apply to organic attraction. So what you do here is, in an ideal world, if you had your metrics, and if you don't have your metrics or a system for logging them, don't worry, I'm going to give you one. But if you don't have your metrics, then you have no idea what's going on, right? So we've got 0.3% book rate. But let's say we do have our metrics. And let's say that we are open rate. So here is a really important point with cold email. Now, I know that I've put in here that a subsystem is getting email open, because it is. You do not want to track your email open rates, okay? And that's seems like a stupid thing for me to say, because how do we keep a log of this? It's really, really, really important you do not ever track your email open rates. The reason behind that is the only way to track your email open rates is to use third-party software on your email, right? So like mailtrack.io and these other like providers that basically what they do is they insert a snippet of HTML code or some sort of code into your emails, and then when we send them, if someone opens it, that code is triggered and we get a notification. In theory, that's a great thing to do because it allows us to gauge a metric here, but in practice, it's a really terrible thing to do, because the main thing to do with cold email is email deliverability and making sure we get actually delivered to the inbox. As soon as you put mail tracking software on your emails, you're basically holding up a massive red flag to these internet service providers like Google and Yahoo, telling them that you're sending marketing emails. Because these big internet service providers, they know that the only people that want to track open rates are email marketers. Now, this is fine to do on a warm list where you've got people's permission to reach out to them, but if you do it cold, you will pay a huge price of poor deliverability, and then every single metric you have in the system will not resemble what it really could be with good email deliverability. So do not track open rates, right? If you want a good open rate, the best subject line to have is question for name. That's it. Do not put crazy shit in your subject line, like oh yeah, like yeah, just don't, right? Basically, my point is people overcomplicate subject lines when it comes to emails. They complicate everything. What we found the best way to get a ridiculously high open rate, 80-90%, is well, at least we think based on the other metrics we see, because we don't even track this, right? Because it's so stupid to track that we don't bother. But to get really high open rates, you want to have the subject line should just be question for blank, or query for business, or inquiry about membership for gyms, for example. Like if we wanted to deliver them more members, we would just put inquiry for members, right? Something that gets their curiosity, that's vague, that they have to click on to understand the context of the email, and that's how we get them to open it. And then the first line of your email, the little preview, should not mention anything to do with you or your company or what you offer, because it's not about us, it's about them. The first line should just say, hey, I love what you're doing, it business looks great. I'll drop by sometime, right? And then you go into the pitch. So they have to open your email to understand the context of this curiosity they have. So that's the first thing. Ideally, we want to have open rate tracked, but we can't because it will destroy your deliverability. And if you do have an open rate tracker installed on your email right now, delete it, remove it, and unfollow the guru that told you to put it on there, because it's a stupid thing to do, okay? So that's number one, is open rate. Now, the thing is if you have a sensible subject line that invokes curiosity, and if the first line of your email is complementing the business without giving any context as to why you're emailing, then you will find that your open rates will be absolutely fine. And for as long as you're doing those things, and as long as you've got other email deliverability practices on check, then your open rate will never be the problem. The open rate is almost never the problem with email. It's a problem when you do stupid things like have really stupid bait and switch subject lines, like, basically it pains me to sort of see this, because the way we get people to respond and the way we get people to continue through processes of action is to keep them curious. And we don't want to satisfy that curiosity until the very last point at which we want them to take the action, which is booking a meeting, right? So note that. Okay, so we can't track this system because it's a silly thing to do, but we can track the rest of these systems, right? So let's say we've got a 0.3% booking rate. So let's say, right, that our email to Loom View here, right, because we're sort of skipping the open rate, our email to Loom View, let's say this is like 45%. Almost half of every email we send, we get someone to view our Loom. If you're wondering what a good Loom View rate is, like a really good Loom View rate, 40% is what you should be aiming for. With e-commerce, it's going to be significantly lower, maybe like 20 to 25%, because lots of people send Looms in those spaces. But let's say that, your email to Loom View rate is 45%. Now, we can determine then that if this is within KPI, right, key performance indicators, if we know that this is above the number at which we're aiming for, then Loom View rate is not the problem, right? So we can tell immediately that the rate at which Looms are being viewed is not the issue. Now, Loom View rate gives you a really, really good indication of 2 points in your Loom sending process. Okay, first of all, it tells you how good your copy is, and then it tells you how good your deliverability is. Okay, and deliverability, I will make another video on this. It's basically getting to the inbox, and there is so much bullshit out there at the moment. It pains me, and I will help you with that. If you need some help with it, let me know. So this, if you've got a good Loom view rate, it means you've got a good email copy, because if you're sending Looms, the point of your email copy should be to get people to watch that Loom. Right? It's not necessarily to get them to book a call. We want the Loom to do the heavy lifting for us in terms of persuading people to book a call. So your copy should be geared towards getting people to watch this Loom. It should keep them curious. It should keep them incentivized. You should have lots of big promises in here. Okay? So like one great thing you can do with copy, for example, is make a really strong claim or strong offer. For example, like I can help you get like 100 meetings in the next 60 days on a pay on results basis. If you want to satisfy your curiosity or validate this claim, I've explained it in a video, have a watch, right? And then the business owner's like, there's no way that's true, I need to watch it, and then you explain it's true. So yeah, so we know with a 45% Loom view rate, we know that this problem here is not being caused by this subsystem. This is not the problem, because we can see that it's within KPI and that we're all groovy, okay? So let's continue. And then let's say you've got metrics for your positive reply rate, okay? So you can track this in one of two ways. You can track it from Loom viewed to actual replies, or you can track it from emails to actual replies. So a more accurate way of doing this is to track it from emails to replies, Okay, so like for example here, let's say you send 100 emails, you get 45 views, and then you get 10 positive replies. Then you could say you've got a like 25% positive reply rate, when in reality you've only got a 10% positive reply rate because you've sent 100 emails. But let's continue on and just assume that that's the case, right? Because we know that we have to get views before we can get replies. And so, you know, we're going to proceed through here. So let's say that, you know, from email to reply rate, which technically does jump like this, let's say that we've got a rate of 15% positive reply rate. So we call this PRR. So this metric here is called LVR, which stands for Loom View Rate. And I'm going to give you a system on how to keep a log of this, don't worry. But this metric here is called PRR, which is positive reply rate. Okay, and so if you've got a 15% positive reply rate, then you're in the green. This is well within KPI. Like positive reply rate, you know, you want to at least aim for 10%. E-com's going to be lower, 5%. If you want to know why, watch the last video I made on why e-com is the hardest niche at the moment. But if you know, like if you've got a 15% positive reply rate, then hell, like, boy, positive reply rate is not the problem. And positive reply rate is a really good indication, if you want to know, of how good your Loom is, and then it's also how good deliverability is and how good copy is. So different metrics will tell you different things about different variables in the process. So if you've got a good Loom view rate, you know you've got good copy and good deliverability. If you've got a good positive reply rate, then you know that you've got a good Loom, because people tend not to reply to these emails until they've watched the video, at least in half. They won't always watch the whole thing. So we know at this point, right? We know when with this problem here, we can start unticking these variables. So when it comes to defining problems, you know, we're going to find the problem could be with deliverability, right? Well, the problem could be with opens, but that won't be. I've already explained how to fix that. It could be with deliverability. It could be with your copy. It could be with your Loom script, right? It could be with your Loom delivery. It could be your Loom length, right? These are all things we have to think of. If you're recording Looms that are longer than 3 minutes, you're doing something really wrong. And whoever has told you to do that, you should not follow them and listen to their information, because business owners do not have the patience or the time to sit through 10-minute videos from people they've never heard from before that resemble pretty much every email they've also received from other people in your niche. It doesn't work, so stop doing it. So Loom length, you know, Loom delivery, Loom script, copy, deliverability, opens. You know, so what we can start doing here is we can start ticking these things off. So we know that our problem is not getting emails opened, because we've got a 45% Loom view rate, and that wouldn't happen if our emails weren't being opened. We know our problem is not email deliverability, because we've got a 45% Loom view rate, and we wouldn't have that number if our emails weren't being delivered. There's no way in hell we'd get this number. So we know that it's not deliverability. We've got a 45% Loom view rate, so we know our issue is not the copy. Now, if your Loom view rate was like 8%, then the chances are you've got an issue with your copy or your deliverability. Okay? So you have to think about these things first and fix these things and define the problem. So the reason we're using these metrics here is to actually gauge what the fucking problem is, right? Because if you don't know what the problem is, you can't solve it. So then we have a 15% positive reply rate. So we know the issue is not the Loom script. We know the issue isn't the Loom delivery, and it's probably not the Loom length, because this is a really strong positive reply rate. And if we had an issue with one of these three variables, then we'd probably see a tank in results. And so you might be thinking at this point, okay, well, we've got a 15% positive reply rate. How is it the case that we've only got a 0.3% booking rate? I think my Wi-Fi has just jumped out here. Let's see if I can connect back. Okay, might have cut out there. If so, I'm sorry. So then we might think, oh, well, why have I got such a shitty booking rate? Well, let's say that your positive reply to booking rate, right, or this would actually jump from total email sent, same again, but it's a subsystem, so we do count it over. Then let's say that your booking rate is 0.3%. as a whole, which we know to be the case from here. So now we can define the problem. And the problem is going from this point here that we see to this point here. So the problem is actually in either our follow-up process or our booking process. Okay, so I'm going to sort of like come out here and let's just move over to here. Okay. So we know we've sort of done this sort of diagnosis process, and we know now that the bottleneck is going from positive reply to booking appointments. And so this is what people don't realize, is they don't look at these subsystems and think about this. So, we're going from positive reply, right, all the way over to appointment booked. So this is a system in and of its own. So once you get someone replying, you need to have a system that nurtures them to book an appointment. So let's say that you've got a 15% positive reply rate, but a 0.3% booking rate over, okay, that was weird, over your emails as a whole, then we can tell there's a gap between these 2 points that isn't happening. So let's say, for example, that you get positive replies, but then you wait 7 days to respond to them, or you have no calendar availability, right? So these are things that you have to consider. I've seen it before where clients have come to me, agencies have come to me saying, oh, Charlie, I'm getting positive replies, but I'm getting no appointments. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's have a look at your system. And then they've literally got like Saturdays at 9 p.m. is the only availability they have for calls. So they're sending their calendar link to these prospects and they've got a fine follow-up process. But when prospects try to book calls, then they've got no calendar availability. And here's the thing. They thought that their problem was with their copy. They thought it was with their deliverability. They thought their whole loom was screwed. And they started panicking about their offer and doubting their niche and their agency. And they started thinking, I need to change my niche. And this guy was thinking about changing his niche when the problem was that he just didn't have his calendar configured right. And this is what happens all the time. This is the point I'm trying to make here. And it's taken me 20 minutes to make it, but I think I should have done a good enough job of explaining it. If you don't know what the problem is, then you can't solve it. So with this guy, all we had to do was open up his calendar availability and resync to Google properly, and then it fixed the whole problem. But this guy was considering changing his niche, changing his agency, and it was just like all he had to do was do one little fix. And I can guarantee the same thing applies to you, right? If you're not receiving appointments, you have to sort of break down every single variable in the process, every single metric, every single subsystem, and every single reason as to why you might not be getting results, and then figure out what that one little thing is. It might be a couple of things, right? You might have to solve some big problems. Your copy might not be pulling through a good Loom view rate, and that might be because your offer's not strong enough. It might be too long, it might be too short, it might not read properly, the English might be bad. And we don't really, you might have there might just be one little niggling thing that's holding back. Like the bottleneck for this whole process was just that sort of really narrow point that value couldn't flow through, was just the fact that he didn't have his calendar open for calls. And he thought about changing his entire model, his entire agency, his entire service because of that little problem. Okay, and we look at it and I was like, okay, what are the metrics telling you? And he was like, oh, well, I'm getting positive replies, just no meetings. And I was like, okay, well, let me see your calendar. And he was like, oh shit. And I was like, so you still want to change your whole agency? And he was like, no. So this could be something else. It could be like his follow-up, it could be his follow-up's not great. His email deliverability on the account he's using could be really poor, so it goes to spam when he tries to put calls. Could be anything. So that's the moral of the story, is don't make stupid decisions without data and metrics to back them up. Because if you do, you're going to probably ruin your agency. So you might now be wondering, okay, so this is a good model, it makes sense and everything, but how the hell am I supposed to keep a track of this stuff? And how do I bring some order to chaos? Because that's what we're doing with metrics, is we're bringing order to chaos, right? So let me introduce you to a spreadsheet that's going to make you more money than any piece of copy or subject line or Loom script you could ever receive. And that is the Loom metrics spreadsheet. So this is actually from our program, the Imperium Agency Incubator, the one that we used. I think we're using to help, 103 agencies right now, and they're all killing it. And so this spreadsheet here is designed to help you keep a log of all of your metrics. So in terms of the process, right, this will not help you track your open rates for reasons that I've explained earlier. We do not track open rates. It's a very silly thing to do. In terms of the metrics, we've got Loom view rate, positive reply rate, appointment booking rate, show up rate, sales conversion rate, and Loom to client rate. So the other metric that I didn't include in here is your show rate and your sales conversion rate. Because the Loom system doesn't stop at booking, right? It continues all the way through to getting the sale. Okay, people think that, I just want to book appointments, but you don't want to book appointments, you want to land clients. And if your systems are engineered on just booking appointments, then you're going to start to feel incentivized and aligned to book appointments no matter what. And then before you know it, you've got shitty appointments that you can't close, and that's a problem in and of itself. But if I move back over here, and take a look at this sheet for you. So the way this thing works is every single day, right? Every single day, you hop in this spreadsheet and you keep a log of these data. You log how many looms you've sent. You log how many looms have been viewed from yesterday. You log how many positive replies you've received from yesterday. You log how many bookings you received yesterday. You logged how many calls you took yesterday attributed to the loom process. We're not putting in calls here from referrals or anything because it doesn't give us a reflection of the single system. This is another mistake I see is people with multiple outreach systems and they keep all of the data in one spreadsheet. And I'm like, why are you doing that? You can't keep a definable cause and effect relationship and all that good stuff if you've got different systems in the same sheet. You keep a log of all your sales from yesterday and a dollar amount. So the key here is to report on data from 24 hours ago to get an accurate depiction of views and replies. So I'm going to put this spreadsheet in the resources section below. Sorry, I'm so used to saying that from the program. It will be in the description below. There's not a resources section, but this will be in the description of this video. And so what you want to do is you want to come in here and you want to report on the data from 24 hours ago. So the key here is to report on yesterday's data. Because if you come in here at 5 p.m. and you log your data for today and you wake up tomorrow and you've received 2 bookings overnight, then you have not properly attributed the data in a 24-hour window and you won't understand. You've got to realize with this stuff, guys, this is more important. Well, actually it's not in a sense, but this is the most important activity you can do to make sure that your looms work properly. Because if you do this, then what's going to happen is you're going to start to keep a really, really reliable log of all of your metrics here. And so even if you've got a loom process right now that's not working, go in and backlog all of your metrics to do this, okay? And if you want to know how to log your loom view rate, all you've got to do is hop into Loom, and then if you hover over a video, it will tell you if it's been viewed or not. It's a bit of a pain to do. If you're sending like 50 looms a day, you've got to hover over each one, tally them up. It takes 5 minutes though, so it's definitely worth it. So let's take a look at this workflow, right? So let's say I'm on the 5th of January. So what I'm doing is I would log the 4th of January. So even if today is the 5th, I'm logging the 4th because I'm logging yesterday's data. So what I'd do here is I'd come in and let's say that I've sent like 40 looms, right? Then I'd know that because I know how many looms I recorded yesterday. Just keep a log. And then let's say that I received, I don't know, let's say we got 18 views. Now the key thing here is to realize that your loom view rate is never going to be 100% accurate, because you might find that emails that you send 2 weeks ago suddenly get viewed today and it gets a bit chaotic. The main thing to realize here is this is not going to be totally accurate from loom view rate perspective, but if you do want a perfectly accurate number, Loom does allow you to export your data. So at the end of each month, what I do is I export the data, I remove all the other videos and metrics, and I just basically tally up the loom views in single form. Okay, so if a loom's been viewed twice, you log it as one view. There's so many things to know about this, and I haven't got loads of time because I'm sure you're quite busy. But you want to use your brain here, right? If you've recorded one loom and it's been viewed 4 times, that does not count as 4 views because it's one business. We're reaching out to the business, right? Not the 4 people that have watched it. We are, but if you do that, then you're going to start to skew the data. So a loom can only count, even if a loom's been viewed 100 times, you count it as one view, okay? Because it's getting people to actually watch it. So then we have positive replies. So let's say yesterday I received 5 positive replies on the keyboard, 5 positive replies. And then I received 3 bookings. I did 1 call, and from that call I made $2,000, right? Like this. And so what will happen is this spreadsheet should be autofilling. I'm not quite sure why it isn't, but I will fix this. Oh, it's because we're on A45, not B45. So what are we looking at here? So this just needs to be, sorry about this guys, this is the level of, like I said, making this up as I go along basically. Okay, there we go. And then this one should be divided by B45. And this one should be D45. And E, Okay, this should be, I'm just doing this now because otherwise I'll probably forget. Okay, so we've got the data here, right? So what we can see, I mean, this is obviously just a single day's data. And the other thing you should do is never make decisions around Looms until you've sent at least 200 of them. So don't make decisions on the day, make decisions on the week, basically. But you know, here we can see it's going to give us a log of our Loom view rate all the way through down to our Loom to client rate. And then we've also got revenue here, which seems to be tracking the wrong metric again. Okay, and so it's going to give you an idea of the whole process. It's going to keep, you know, a nice sort of healthy log of everything that you've got going on, and you know, you're going to be able to start to actually define some cause and effect here. And so, you know, use this thing every day, use it religiously. It's super, super important, and it's going to make you a lot of money. Okay, so that's basically the point I wanted to get across here. Is look at this. The main thing to take away from this video, if anything, is to realize that whilst you've got the system as a whole, it's made up of subsystems that all must work in order for the whole system to work. And if you want to solve your Loom problem, and if you want to get more results from your Looms, you just have to look at the subsystems and solve the small things to make the big thing work. It's kind of just like building a puzzle, right? You've just got to slot all the pieces together in the right way for the whole thing to come together. And if you're missing one puzzle piece, then the puzzle is not complete and it won't work or perform the action it's supposed to, right? Which could just be being a full puzzle, for example. So that's everything for today's video. I plan on making lots of these videos, you know, just detailed, lengthy training videos that actually solve a problem for you, instead of just giving you like 10% of the information you need and then sort of funneling you through to some sort of VSL, which makes me a bit sick to think about, to be honest. So what I will do is leave this spreadsheet here in the description. So it'll be a Google share link. You can just go here and make a copy, and then you can go to file and make a copy, so you've got a log of your own. And honestly, like, just turn this into a habit. I do this every morning. It takes 5 minutes. It's a bit of a pain, but it makes me more money than anyone could imagine. It's pretty crazy how well this thing works. Because like, if for some reason I'm not receiving responses, instead of panicking and freaking out and thinking about changing my business and everything or any of that crap, I just come in and I pull the data from the last 5 days or however long the problem has persisted for. I look at the metrics, I define where the problem is, I drill down to that, I drill right down to the root of the cause of the problem, and I fix it because I know where to look. People think problem solving is difficult, but the part that's difficult is problem definition. And if you can define, you've basically solved. Okay, so that's everything. I don't do this very often in my videos, but I think I'm going to make a habit of it, because I had a guy who booked a call with me to talk about our program, and he said he couldn't find my calendar link, and it took him ages to find. So if you do want to discuss how my company can help your company grow, we've got basically run a business called Imperium Agency, and we've got some systems to help people get clients. Very detailed training videos and systems that allow you to do that. If you are open to that idea, there's no obligation. Truth be told, my calendar is absolutely rammed at the moment. So if you want to talk, go ahead and book a call and we can chat. If you don't and you just want to keep watching these videos, that's fine by me as well. Honestly, like, it's all good. So I'll leave a calendar link, it'll be a calendar link in the description as well, probably right at the bottom. If you want to book a call with me anytime to talk about your agency, it will be a sales call. If I think you're a good fit, I'll try and get you on board for the program. It's not one of these, it's not like a coaching call. I'm not really a huge fan of sort of like doing these weird sales calls that are like an hour long and you don't really talk about anything and you just discuss weird stuff. I'd rather have a structure, and if you're a good fit, we'll sign you up. If not, no worries. So yeah, that's everything, guys. Thanks for watching, and I plan on releasing videos like this every week or so. I've been a bit inconsistent recently, apologies for that. But yeah, see you guys soon. Drop a like, drop a comment, subscribe if you're new, and we'll go from there. Have a good day. Take care.